Against every principle, every regulation that the military had instilled in me, I found myself penning down this narrative. There might be those who'd call it a breach of national security, and I wouldn't disagree. But if you were in my shoes, and if you saw what I'd seen lurking in the shadowy waters, perhaps you'd feel just as desperate to share. The Lexington Proving Grounds, nestled within the parameters of Lexington, Kentucky, isn't your regular facility. Its history is imbued with the testing of military equipment, predominantly explosive ordnance. The echoes of its past, however, reverberate with the haunting knowledge of chemical weapon trials. The vast expanse of the facility is riddled with a myriad of test ranges, from air to ground, ground to air, surface to surface, and even air to water ranges. But it's the underwater range that haunts my dreams, making me question the very nature of our reality. When I first stepped foot on this base, the superpond was introduced to me. Picture this: a vast water-filled crater, roughly circular in shape, holding a staggering 860 million gallons of water. Spanning 1,000 feet across with a depth of 150 feet at its darkest recesses, this pond stands as a testament to mankind's pursuit of war-related innovations. A man-made canal connects it to the vast Hamilton Bay. Here, boats face their watery graves, sinking during tests. Underwater structures rise and fall, giving way to the constant demand for newer tests. Of course, to keep the pool in optimal condition, routine maintenance tasks are a must. This means regular checks and clearing out the debris left behind from the countless experiments. However, of late, things have been odd. Approximately 3 months prior, we'd engaged in a test of an explosive device the likes of which I'd never seen. Classified documentation circled the project, so I was only privy to certain details. This wasn't just any explosive. The whispers around the base hinted at cutting-edge technology, high-energy reactants and quantum reactions, forming a bubble of something between gas and magnetic field. This peculiar matter was then lit into a hot plasma by an initiating wave. If you could imagine an explosion originating from within a target, ripping it apart from the inside out, you'd come close to understanding the intention behind this monstrosity. The experiment was stationed on a platform within the superpond, and I recall thinking it odd. The design was such that the reaction wouldn't traverse through water. The aim, to gauge its effectiveness without the pesky issue of unwanted collateral damage. The report on my desk was succinct. The test had been conducted. Yet, much to my vexation, the intricate details were missing, even for a document that wasn't bound under the seal of classification. The gnawing curiosity that started as a faint whisper in the back of my mind quickly grew to a roaring cacophony, urging me to dig deeper, to understand what had transpired in those dark waters. In the gloomy hallways of the base, murmurs began surfacing, breeding in hushed corners where the overhead fluorescents flickered ominously. Word traveled from one wary staff member to another, and soon enough, I found myself in quiet conversations, gathering threads of narratives that seemed too eerie to be rooted in reality. It became clear why the report lacked the depth of details. The incident that morning, which occurred just before the sky kissed the dawn, had been so baffling that it led to fast-tracking a Section 8 discharge. Picture this. In the early morning haze, a metal barge floated ominously in the center of the pond, a formidable test device mounted upon it, surrounded by an array of sensors meticulously placed along the shoreline and on the barge itself. As they initiated the device, the observer recollected a bizarre delay, a moment stretched infinitely where an uncanny ripple of air traveled inward towards the device. It seemed as if reality itself hesitated, holding its breath before succumbing to a blinding flash, followed by a thunderous boom that resonated with the cries of the earth itself. But here's where the tale twists into the realm of the unexplained. When the smoke and waves settled, the barge seemed untouched. No signs of damage marred its surface. It stood defiant against the experiment, not even a scorch mark to testify the enormity of the event it bore witness to. The explosive device, however, had vanished without a trace. Upon closer inspection, they found a grotesque transformation on the underbelly of the barge, likened to a gunshot's exit wound, a crater that bore the marks of a force that sought to defy logic. An explosion that occurred just beneath the surface, its force directed into the depths of the pond. The test sensors painted an even stranger picture, recording flashes of light showcasing contradictory wavelengths, creating hues that should not exist in our spectrum. Despite this otherworldly phenomena, no radiation or particulates were detected, only a baffling pressure wave that bridged the gap between the trigger and the explosion, a whisper from realms unknown. The test was dubbed a failure, yet the data harvested promised to plunge scientists into a whirlpool of theories and investigations for a long foreseeable future. As weeks trickled by, the pond stood silent and seemingly empty, but eerie occurrences began to surface. The base security found themselves haunted by peculiar noises emanating from the vicinity of the pond, low, resonant booms that echoed with a foreboding undertone. When questioned, the guards hesitated before sharing tales of unnatural phenomena, sounds that seemed to warp the very air around them, described eerily as a rushing wind turned inside out and backwards. Further investigations revealed odd flashes deep within the pond, dismissed initially as optical illusions or tricks played by the flickering light. Yet, they couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that something was amiss, their descriptions punctuated with confused references to the lights appearing at impossible depths and angles. As time drew on, a chilling episode unfolded nearly 2 months later during a routine underwater demolition practice within the pond. Details of the operation remain undisclosed, a secretive veil shrouding the identities and the exact nature of the exercise. What I can divulge is that those involved were individuals of stern disposition, seasoned in keeping their calm under distressing conditions, trained to observe and report with meticulous precision. In preparation for this operation, a structure mirroring their target was submerged into the heart of the pond, a grim sentinel awaiting its demise. The mission was simple, yet perilous. Dive into the unknown depths, evaluate the position of the target, and execute a controlled demolition, minimizing surface disturbances. A veil of ignorance was draped around them, as information on the conditions at the bottom of the pond remained undisclosed, adding layers of uncertainty to an already daunting task. Unbeknownst to them, a series of maintenance dives were postponed to preserve the secrecy and integrity of the operation, leaving them blind to the shifting, lurking enigma that the pond had transformed into, a breeding ground for phenomena that defied the boundaries of the known world. Underneath the oppressive cloak of secrecy, the base continued to rumble with disquiet, resonating with the echoes of mysteries lurking in the depths of the man-made pond that now seemed more akin to an enigmatic abyss than a controlled training environment. On a day that seemed no different from any other, a group of trainees were instructed to embark on an operation that would send them diving into the murky waters of the canal, venturing forth into the pond towards a predetermined target. Contact with the surface was strictly prohibited until the mission was seen to completion. Little did they anticipate the strange anomalies that awaited them below. Although the operation was executed seamlessly, the debriefing revealed a harrowing tale that seemed to stem from the depths of a Lovecraftian narrative. The official reports penned by the team painted a picture of an underwater environment that had transformed beyond recognition. Firstly, they noted the occurrence of strange currents that defied the nature of a man-made pond, connected to a singular source of tidal water. Eddies and cross-currents played tricks on them as they navigated through the water, which now displayed patches of extreme temperature variations, transitioning drastically within a span of few yards. But what was profoundly unsettling was the revelation from the team leader, who praised the simulated environment that they believed was orchestrated for training enhancement. They recounted a surreal and vivid underwater landscape, rich with sprawling coral reefs that fluoresced with an otherworldly glow, casting an eerie illumination in the dark aquatic abyss. This element of surprise, he noted, was excellent in preparing them for unforeseen challenges in the field. However, the shocking truth was that no such modifications had been made to the pond. In fact, the environmental conditions were extremely hostile for coral growth, let alone ones that exhibited a celestial glow. As waves of unrest and confusion swept through the ranks, the decision was taken to probe the enigma that the pond had turned into. With the solemn tolling of the noon hour, a diver was dispatched into the heart of the pond, armed with an underwater camera and protected with full diving gear. But the tranquility of the afternoon was soon shattered by a sonorous, booming sound that resonated from the depths, giving birth to waves that marred the serene surface of the pond. A grim silence descended as communications with the diver ceased, the safety tether becoming a lifeline that seemed to stretch into the abyss. By the time the clock neared 1, an ominous decision had to be made. The diver was retrieved, his lifeless form bearing witness to a horrific encounter in the depths. His body, battered beyond recognition, resembled a grotesque puppet, a rag doll caught in the clutches of a monstrous force. The autopsy revealed a macabre spectacle, almost every bone shattered, splintered, a testimony to an encounter with a force that seemed to defy the laws of physics. An official statement chalked it up to an underwater ordnance accident, citing the increased danger due to water's ability to conduct and amplify the force of explosions. But the tragedy seemed to echo within the murky waters, refusing to be silenced. After a span of 3 solemn weeks marked by safety reevaluations and the mournful aftermath of accidents, a decision was taken to send 2 more brave souls into the abyss. Equipped with advanced gear and tethered to each other for added security, they ventured into the unknown, seeking answers and perhaps closure to the mysteries that seemed to plague the pond. The tranquility of the afternoon gave no hint of the terror that awaited below. As the clock struck 2:15, I witnessed a phenomenon that sent shivers down my spine. Unearthly lights began to dance below the water's surface, lights that seemed to defy the very laws of nature, flickering with an ethereal quality that made them appear as if they were candles flickering in an open, vast field, unhindered by the refractive properties of water. As I stood transfixed, unable to tear my gaze away from the hypnotic dance, a sense of dread slowly engulfed me. The lights began congregating, encircling an unseen entity, their pulsating glow creating a macabre dance that seemed to beckon forces unknown. In a horrifying realization, I understood the grave danger that lay before us, a force that threatened to engulf everything in its wake. With a heart that seemed to pound louder than the impending doom, I witnessed the culmination of the dance of lights. In a cataclysmic finale, they extinguished suddenly, giving birth to a thunderous explosion that sent a pillar of water skyward, a watery grave claiming those who dared to probe its secrets. The weight of my failure bore heavily on me, a burden of guilt for not realizing the danger sooner, for not saving my comrades from the dark forces that lurked below. As we hauled them from the malevolent grip of the pond, a glimmer of hope shone through the tragedy. Miraculously, one had survived the ordeal, albeit with grievous injuries that told tales of blunt force trauma. As we rushed him to the safety of the shore, I couldn't shake off the oppressive cloak of self-reproach that threatened to engulf me, vowing to never forget the brave souls who fell victim to the malevolent mysteries lurking in the depths of the pond, a dark abyss that held secrets far beyond our understanding. In the aftermath of the horrifying incident, there lay a lone survivor, a battered sentinel of the unspeakable horrors lurking in the abyss of the pond. He fought valiantly against the looming clutches of death, his spirit struggling to convey the dark truths he had witnessed in the depths. Through shattered whispers, he spoke of phenomena that seemed to defy the natural world. Living lights, inexplicable growths blossoming in the dark underwater prairie, a testament to the unholy transformation that the depths had undergone. But despite his fervent attempts to communicate the malevolent changes occurring in the pond, his strength waned, and soon the fragile thread that tethered him to life snapped, leaving behind a silence that echoed with unspeakable secrets and looming dread. As the ripples of the tragedy continued to spread, the higher echelons at the base initiated a stringent protocol, trying to contain the escalating crisis. The pond, now a crucible of unknown dangers and dark mysteries, was declared off-limits, a moratorium until a thorough evaluation of the circumstances could be carried out. Yet the methods to untangle this intricate web of secrets remained shrouded in uncertainty. How could one fathom the depths of such darkness without venturing into its sinister heart? Haunted by the weight of responsibility and an overwhelming guilt that threatened to consume my very being, I knew that redemption could only be sought through confronting the darkness that had claimed the lives of my comrades. As the base plunged into meticulous reviews and frantic searches through past records to ascertain the nature of experiments conducted in the vicinity of the pond, a resolution crystallized within me. Driven by a potent mixture of guilt and determination, I resolved to undertake a covert expedition into the belly of darkness, to validate my suspicions, to seek answers, or perhaps to find a semblance of peace in understanding the entity that now occupied the pond. As night enveloped the base in a cloak of darkness, I found myself standing at the edge of the malevolent waters, armed with nothing more than a single beacon of light, a feeble shield against the encroaching darkness. With bated breath, I submerged myself into the eerie stillness of the lagoon. The darkness seemed almost sentient, pressing in from all sides, as if attempting to swallow me whole. Yet, within moments, the objective of my desperate venture became glaringly apparent as I stumbled upon an eerie sight, the remnants of a past exploration, a crushed camera that told tales of previous confrontations with the entity lurking below. Grasping the cold relic firmly, I felt the unsettling beginnings of an ominous luminescence growing behind me, a congregation of those living lights that seemed to be drawn to my presence. Without a moment's hesitation, forsaking the burden of earthly attachments, I released my weight belt, allowing the urgency of survival to fuel my swift ascent to the realm of the living. There was no time to glance back into the abyss, no time to confront the entities that pursued me. The priority was survival, the retrieval of evidence that could perhaps shed light on the darkness that had engulfed the pond. As dawn heralded a new day, marked with the scars of past tragedies, I found myself seeking the assistance of the IT department, bearing the damaged camera as a key to unlocking the dark secrets held within its digital confines. Spinning a tale of a personal accident that had befallen the device, I implored them to recover the contents, hinting at the sentimental value of the footage that lay within its damaged memory. With an amalgamation of skill and eagerness to assist, a technician managed to bridge the gap between the tangible and the digital realms, extracting the data that potentially held glimpses of the mysteries that pervaded the pond. As the footage unfolded before us, a sense of dread intermingled with morbid curiosity, as we were drawn into a world that seemed to defy the natural order, a world that bore witness to an evolution most unnatural. As the footage began, it documented routine checks, the preliminary stages before the descent into the abyss. But soon, it transitioned into an underwater realm, transformed, revealing towering structures of coral that stood as silent sentinels in the watery depths. Their forms defied earthly descriptions, rising in tall crystalline pillars adorned with jagged edges, reflecting a surreal kaleidoscope of colors, predominantly shades of yellow, orange, and pink, that painted an eerie underwater landscape. These pillars, arranged with an unsettling precision, formed a grid that stretched across the ocean floor, their heights varying, but all exhibiting signs of strange outgrowths and abnormalities at their summits. But as the footage progressed, it became evident that these towering structures were not the only inhabitants of this dark world. A sudden shift revealed an ambient glow permeating the area, a dance of lights that seemed to hold secrets of their own. The camera captured fleeting glimpses of other ethereal lights, weaving intricate patterns in the dark waters, their forms elusive and ever-changing. As the camera focused, it became apparent that the lights bore an unnatural semblance to lens flares, floating ominously in the depths. Yet, attempts to capture their true nature seemed futile, as if the digital medium could not fully comprehend the entities that existed before it. The center of these floating halos remained obscured, pixels garbling into chaotic patterns, unable to render the essence of the beings that resided within. The footage continued its haunting tale, capturing the dance of lights that seemed to grow in numbers, approaching the cameraman with an unknown intent, an unfolding narrative that bore witness to the convergence of the unknown and the living. The air in the room grew thick with tension and foreboding as we watched, transfixed, unable to tear ourselves away from the unfolding drama that beckoned us further into its dark embrace, leaving us with unsettling glimpses of a world transformed, a world where darkness held sway, and the unknown awaited those who dared to venture into its malevolent depths. In the subsequent and most haunting part of the recording, the unseen diver finds himself surrounded by an otherworldly spectacle. Floating entities, bearing semblances to living lights, embroil him in an eerie dance, their movements betraying signs of a distinct, yet enigmatic intelligence guiding them. As they gracefully oscillate and twirl in the shadowy water, a surreal display unfolds akin to a mesmerizing ballet, performed by creatures who seem more curious than afraid of the human presence intruding upon their realm. This breathtaking dance, seemingly orchestrated by an unseen maestro, displays a curious mixture of caution and curiosity, resembling a school of fish encountering a species foreign to their underwater domain. As the lights play their celestial dance, some distance themselves swiftly, only to be replaced by others that approach with a cautious yet entrancing grace. It's almost as if they are beckoning, drawing the diver deeper into their mystic ritual, tempting him to reach across the barrier that separates the known from the unknown. In an act of either bravery or sheer folly, we witness the cameraman succumbing to the mysterious allure, reaching out in an attempt to bridge the gap between worlds, driven by an innate human desire to explore the enigmatic and unknown realms that lay before him. And then, in a pivotal moment that stands suspended in time, the hand makes contact. The atmosphere in the watery depths seems to convulse, giving rise to a blinding burst of luminescence that threatens to engulf everything in its wake. Frame by frame, the footage reveals the tantalizing details of this encounter, the halos of lights reacting, contracting, and pulsating in a symphonic response to the human touch. And as the hand meets the chaotic swirl at the center, a cataclysmic explosion of light and energy emanates, birthing a shockwave that reverberates through the murky depths. The final timestamp displayed on the camera narrates a silent testament to the colossal event that echoed through the water at exactly 12:45, synchronizing eerily with the mysterious boom that resonated through the base, marking the end of this enigmatic voyage into the unknown. Now, the weight of the revelations born from the retrieved footage lay heavily upon the shoulders of the commanding officers at the base, plunging them into a vortex of uncertainty and fear. The community finds itself torn between various factions, each advocating for drastically different approaches to handle the burgeoning crisis that threatens to escalate beyond their control. The dark waters of the pond have now transformed into a cauldron of mysteries and potential dangers, fueling debates and conjectures that veer towards increasingly apocalyptic scenarios. Some propose the drastic measure of draining the pond completely, fervently arguing that the only way to combat the unknown is to lay it bare to the scrutiny of daylight. Yet, others vociferously oppose this, pointing towards past failures and ominous signs that hint at a deep interconnection between the enigmatic entities and the waters that house them. They theorize that the removal of water might potentially destabilize them, perhaps unleashing forces that could wreak havoc on an unimaginable scale. Others still maintain a more conservative stance, suggesting that perhaps the water acts as a barrier, containing the entities within its dark embrace, preventing them from escaping into the vastness of the bay, and perhaps orchestrating a catastrophe of untold proportions. Amidst the heated debates and escalating fears, an impasse emerges, a deadlock fueled by the fear of unleashing forces that humanity might not be equipped to contend with. The higher echelons find themselves paralyzed, hesitant to escalate the matter up the chain of command, fearing that it might only exacerbate the impending crisis, spinning it further out of control. Yet, while the discussions rage on above the surface, a more insidious development unfolds beneath the rippling waters of the lagoon. Entrusted with the grave responsibility of monitoring the evolving situation, particularly during the cloak of night, I have witnessed unsettling changes that hint at an impending upheaval. A soft yet steadily intensifying glow emanates from the deeper regions of the lagoon, a luminescent beacon that seems to be advancing steadily towards the surface. The eerie lights, bearing the familiar hues of yellow, orange, and pink, spread ominously, inching closer each day to the canal doors that stand as fragile barriers between us and the unknown entities that lie beneath. Each passing day sees my outlook growing increasingly grim as the tendrils of despair creep steadily into my consciousness. The unknown entity, or entities, appear to be on the brink of breaching the boundaries that separate our worlds, potentially bringing with them consequences we cannot fathom. The atmosphere grows thicker with the stifling weight of indecision and fear, as the collective psyche of the base descends further into a state of fatalistic dread. With the impending threat looming ever closer, a nagging sense of impending doom takes root, fostering a crippling inertia that seems to pervade the minds of those entrusted with making the potentially apocalyptic choices that lay ahead. A disturbing realization dawns upon us, suggesting that perhaps, when confronted with the unexplainable mysteries and potential horrors of the unknown, humanity's innate response might be to shy away, to avert our gaze, and to hide within the comforting yet perilous embrace of ignorance and inaction. As the tendrils of light continue their inexorable advance, we find ourselves grappling with the mounting fear that perhaps our only hope lies in the possibility that inaction might be the right choice, a gamble based on the hope that the entities might remain confined to their aquatic realm, unable to exist in the world that lay above the waterline. Yet, deep within, a sinking feeling persists, a growing suspicion that we might be standing at the precipice of an unprecedented catastrophe, where the only outcome seems to be a reluctant surrender to the unyielding march of the unknown, as it seeks to reclaim its place in a world unprepared for the revelations that await beneath the surface of the haunted waters that lay before us.